Another Wow Me Wednesday. I so appreciate all your feedback and comments from last week's video about how to eliminate filler words like like, and you know. People were commenting, admitting that they too use filler words here and there, which I admit to, and how people didn't realize they use you know so often until one of their friends or family members pointed it out, or until they saw themselves on video. So thank you again for the feedback. Really important for me to learn from you guys as well. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of nonverbal cues when delivering a presentation, whether it's on camera or in front of a live audience or even a job interview. Nonverbal cues meaning your body language as well as your voice intonations and your pacing. Some studies show that no matter how weak or strong the content of your presentation is, the way you deliver it through your body language and tone of voice leaves more of an impact, an impression on your audience than your content, believe it or not. So I'm not saying that your content is not important, that you shouldn't spend time on that, because your good content equals credibility and also develops more confidence. But that means you also need to set aside time to practice to incorporate the body language, the intonations, inflections, and pacing in your presentation. Be sure to build enough time after you have the content of your presentation laid out. So first, I'm going to talk about your voice. The first tip I have to share with you regarding your voice is the tone of voice. Now, you need to feel what you're presenting. When you're talking about a light-hearted topic, maybe you're sharing a funny story about your kids, or you're talking about the accomplishments that you or your organization have achieved. It's happy. It's something you're proud of. So you're going to want to maybe raise your voice, make your voice higher so you sound more upbeat and more peppy. And you could maybe speed up so that it insinuates more happiness and more joy in your voice too. When it comes to something more serious, if you're talking about maybe homelessness in your community or domestic violence, then you're going to want to be more somber and more serious, and also slow down your pacing. When I was a reporter and I would do stories about tragedies like house fires and storms and murders, which was more often than not, I would have to feel my story, the topic of my story. And I would speak like this, more somber, more serious, and more slowly. Now, when I did a story about a lighthearted feature story like surfing dogs, I really did do a story on that in Coronado, in San Diego, or maybe something like a roller derby team, which I also did in San Diego, then you can sound more like this, more upbeat. And literally in the sound booth, I would be smiling. You know how when you're on the phone and you can hear the other person smiling on the other end? Yes, people can hear your voice smiling too. So smile when you're talking about something more positive and more happy. The second tip I have when it comes to your voice is pacing. Now, I definitely referred to it in my last point, but when it comes to how fast or slow you go, also has to do with your nerves. I know when the adrenaline kicks in, you tend to talk faster, right? I have worked with a lot of clients who tend to talk really fast, and they ask me, how do I manage that? How do I slow down? So first off, take deep breaths to be able to slow down your heart rate. Bring your voice down lower so you're not just speaking from your throat, but more from your diaphragm. Take deep breaths throughout your presentation too, so that you convey more confidence and less nervousness. When you're talking fast, it sounds like you're rushing through, and you're more likely to mumble or mess up. So you definitely don't want to do that. When you slow down, it also creates tension. So you have to slow down at the appropriate points, more serious points of your presentation, like I referred to earlier. But really important to keep in mind is not to talk really fast throughout the whole presentation or really slow throughout the presentation. Switching it up is going to help keep your audience engaged and tuned in. Speak fast when you are trying to say something more upbeat, and speak slowly when speaking about something more serious. And remember the power of the pause. Pausing creates tension, creates drama, and also mixes up the monotony of your presentation so people will tune in, lean in when you pause, thinking, oh, what's she going to say next? Now, when it comes to body language, my first tip is about your gestures. Be sure to work the room. Don't just stand still, but if you can, walk around the stage. I'm going to move back so you can see more of my body. Move around left to right, move forward when you can. When you're trying to emphasize a point, lean forward. Also, if you are using a podium, don't grip the podium. That also conveys nervousness. If you have to use notes or cards, try not to grip them either. I was working with a client recently who delivered a keynote presentation, a half-hour-long keynote presentation at a conference in San Diego for 500 people. So you can bet the pressure was on, right? And yeah, she had to use some note cards, which was okay in this instance because it was so long, and she didn't rely on them too much. So there were points where she did grip them with both hands. And I asked her, hey, do you need to do that? Try to just hold it with one hand so you can use the other hand, actually both hands, even the ones holding the cards, to gesture. A lot of people also ask me, how big can I get? I generally tell people, keep it within this kind of radius with your elbows bent. But if you're talking about someone who's really tall or something, an animal, maybe that's really big, feel free to go bigger than that. Also, if you're on a stage with a big audience, go big, it's okay. Bring out those jazz hands. Second tip when it comes to body language is eye contact. Eye contact, just like when you're having a one-on-one conversation, is going to help you connect with your audience. When you're working the room, try to hold eye contact with different audience members, especially those who are smiling and looking back at you and nodding to give you encouragement. Hold the gaze for 1 or 2 seconds. That conveys credibility and confidence to your audience and builds that connection. The third tip when it comes to body language is smiling. Of course, when appropriate, when you're talking about, again, more lighthearted topics, not when you're talking about more serious issues. But especially when it comes to the beginning and end of your presentation, the beginning when you are introducing yourself to make that first impression, and at the end, when you are wrapping things up and giving a call to action or maybe a quote to inspire people, this is the lasting impression that you're going to give. I hope these tips on gestures, on body language, on your tone of voice are helpful for you for your everyday conversations or for upcoming presentations and interviews coming up. Next week, I'm going to be on a family vacation in Lake Tahoe. Can't wait! But I still want to come live to you through Wow Me Wednesday. So I'm thinking maybe I'll incorporate some family members who are really powerful and compelling speakers in their own right. I'm talking about you, Ed Walters, and Rich Lowe. So be sure to tune in then. If you like what you see, please leave comments below and let me know what else you want to learn about. What are some other tips that I haven't covered yet? And always, you can check out my website at jessicachangconsulting.com for a list of my services and to check out some of my work from the past. Thanks, guys. See you next week.